This is the 2025 Guide to Parenting Without Punishment, read and written by me, Thomas Piccirilli from the Dad Vibes. Introduction. It's 2025, which means I've been a parent for 7 years, and my wife and I chose to parent without punishment. I just want to call it out now, that doesn't mean parenting without boundaries, discipline, or consequences. It doesn't mean being a weak or permissive parent. It means that we choose to leave fear and shame out of our relationship with our kids. Without a doubt, it's the best decision we've ever made. So, if you want to begin parenting without punishment, where do you start? Firstly, you need to understand that the words punishment and discipline are used interchangeably. The word discipline comes from the Latin disciplina, which essentially means teaching, learning, or instruction. Punishment is when we look to inflict or impose a penalty on our children for something. To discipline means to teach. To teach is to show and explain how to do something. We don't need to punish to teach. Traditionally, if a child has displayed challenging behaviour, then we've been taught that for them to learn, we need to shame them or scold them. We've been taught that we need to send them to time out, withdraw our love, and essentially punish them for them to learn. To help shift your perspective, Rebecca Eanes, a positive parenting author, once said, "So often children are punished for being human. None of us are perfect, and we must stop holding our children to a higher standard of perfection than we can attain ourselves." The thing is, punishment stops unwanted behaviour because it forces our kids to conform. It suppresses emotion, but it impacts self-esteem and self-worth. Punishment doesn't build the skills needed to regulate emotions. It doesn't build the skills needed to communicate feelings, and it doesn't build skills needed for things like sharing and telling the truth. Punishment shames our kids into thinking they're bad and provides them with zero tools to do better next time. The issue is, when we're in a position where we think punishment is necessary, then that's the point at which we want our kids to build important life skills. One way to really help me shift this perspective is to see things from my child's point of view. It's something I try to do with my content on the Dad Vibes. It's to take parents on a journey and try and help them see things from the child's perspective. So, let's say your 3-year-old has lost control. They get frustrated and they throw a toy against the wall. You lose it, you yell, you send them to the corner of the room and tell them that there's no more playtime for the rest of the day. This approach is common. It's how we've been raised and how we think we should deal with situations like this. But let's look at things from our child's point of view. Just going off script, within the PDF, which is accessible via the link below, I take you through an animated storyboard of illustrations. So the first illustration is a child standing alone, and he says, "When you punish me, I feel scared and confused. I know I made a mistake, but I need help to understand it. Punishment makes me focus on being in trouble, not learning." And here there's an image of a parent shouting at a child, and the child is looking at themselves in the mirror and thinking, "What is wrong with me?" "When you talk to me calmly, I can understand and try to do better. Punishment might stop my behaviour now, but it won't teach me why it's wrong. Please help me learn with kindness and guidance. Thank you for helping me grow, not just punishing me." And if you've got access to the guide, there's a link straight after this storyboard, and it's to an animated version of this on my Instagram. Okay, back to the guide. Isn't it easy to convey the importance of a calm response in a PDF or an Instagram post? If only it was that easy in real life. But what I'm trying to do here is to help you make that perspective shift, because without the shift in mindset, there won't be much willingness to transition away from punishment parenting methods. It doesn't matter who you are or how you were raised. I'd struggle to see how anyone can justify punishment as an appropriate way of interacting with children. And with the breakdown on the previous page, I hope now you're in a better place to see things from your little one's point of view. The keep calm hack. Okay, so here's a hack for keeping calm, because let's be honest, if you can't keep calm during the height of those challenging parenting moments, then you have little chance of working with your child and helping them calm themselves. So next time your child has lost control, they're having a huge emotional outburst and you're struggling to stay calm, try and decouple their behaviour and their emotion. Remember that emotion refers to the feeling and internal states a child experiences, such as frustration, anger, fear, or sadness. Behaviour, on the other hand, refers to the outward action and expression that results from these emotions, which may include screaming, crying, hitting, or other disruptive behaviours. We must acknowledge our child's emotions by letting them know that it's okay to feel upset or angry, because it will help them learn that their emotions are normal and acceptable. There are also so many longer term benefits for this. It helps them learn to communicate how they're feeling using words, and it helps them to be more compassionate towards others, because they're able to identify the emotions in other people. One of the things that doesn't get discussed enough is that this will help our children when they grow and begin to form relationships of their own, because it teaches them what a healthy response to emotions looks like, so they can pick up when toxicity starts to enter a relationship. Okay, now for some real talk. While it's important to validate emotions, it's also important we address the disruptive behaviour separately. This means focusing on the action or behaviour that is not acceptable while recognising and respecting the underlying emotion, which may sound something like this. I can see you're angry. Launching your toy is not an okay way to express that. How to stop punishing your kids? Where do we start? How do we begin to move away from punishment as a form of discipline? Well, let me kick off with a very specific example. Your 6-year-old lashes out and hits their 1-year-old sibling during a moment of frustration. Approach 1, punishment. You yell, "What did you just do that for? That was wrong. No more playing with your toys today. You are grounded." You take the toys away as punishment. Your little one cries, feels angry, and believes they are bad without fully understanding why hitting was wrong or how to handle frustration differently. The behaviour stops temporarily, but your child has not learned how to handle their emotions effectively or how to deal with conflict in a better way. Approach 2, calm but authoritative. You separate your children and acknowledge the feelings of your oldest. I see you're upset because your sister took your toy. It's okay to feel mad. It's not okay to hit. It looks like you are feeling frustrated. What can we do next time instead of hitting? You can tell me if you feel frustrated, or you can use your words to ask for your toy back. Let's practice that. How do you think we can help your sister feel better? This approach helps your child understand that while frustration is normal, hitting is not the right way to handle it. You've also provided tools to help them with emotional regulation. By responding this way, you're also helping the relationship between your little ones as the older child learns to empathise and manage emotions while the younger one feels more secure. Compared with yelling and growling, where your oldest might start building resentment towards your youngest. When we feel the need to punish our child, be it screaming, yelling, or even spanking, chances are our child is pushing our boundaries, testing a limit we've set, or displaying some form of challenging behaviour. Maybe you've spent an hour making them a lovely meal which they're refusing to eat. Maybe they're on their 4th meltdown of the day because you've served their lunch in a blue bowl and they wanted it in their yellow bowl. Or maybe they're downright refusing to turn off the TV. Depending on the age of the child, it may be that you need to model how to effectively regulate your emotions, or it might be that you need to model what appropriate behaviour looks like when you're frustrated, angry, or upset. In these moments, if you're able to respond to your child with a level of calm, if only some of the time, then you're well placed to teach your child those all-important life lessons. I get it. It's difficult to move forward with this when you struggle with regulating your own emotions. And that's something all parents need to work on every single day. Children learn what they see, and they certainly learn what they live. So if we're aggressive towards our child, then our child will learn to be aggressive. They'll learn that that's how adults deal with situations. They yell, they shout, and they shame. For me, a huge motivator in moving past punishments was appreciating that my little one needed me during his worst moments. If we're shunning our child in those challenging moments, if we're withdrawing our love and sending them to the corner to deal with these big emotions all alone, then what are we teaching them? And further to that, if we're aggressive, if we're yelling or spanking them, then what are we teaching them? We're teaching them that their big feelings don't matter. We're encouraging them to suppress their emotions. We're teaching them that we're unavailable when they need us most. If we aim to raise emotionally intelligent children who display empathy towards others, then we need to meet them with compassion and empathy, not just in their best moments, but in their worst moments too. But before moving on, let me share an important quote by Catherine Wallace. Listen earnestly to anything your children want to tell you, no matter what. If you don't listen eagerly to the little stuff when they are little, they won't tell you the big stuff when they are big, because to them, all of it has always been big stuff. The wall and the bridge. If you're still having a hard time buying into parenting without punishment, let's try and think about it like this. I want to talk to you about the wall and the bridge. Imagine that every time you punish your child, you're building a wall between you both. Each time you punish, a brick is added. So if you lead with fear, shame, resentment, or disconnection, a brick stacks on top of the wall. Over time, the wall gets higher and higher, making it harder for your child to communicate, trust, and connect with you. And just to go off script, if you read the guide, you'll see a visual representation of what I'm talking about here. Even if the punishment works short term, the long-term effect is a loss of emotional safety. Your child may comply, but they don't learn better behaviour. They just hide their mistakes, rebel, or internalise shame. Parenting without punishment is about building a connection that allows understanding, empathy, and growth. Each interaction is like adding a plank to a bridge that brings you closer to your child. You can add a plank by leading with empathy, which is understanding the root of the behaviour instead of reacting to it. You can add a plank by leading with guidance, teaching your child why their actions matter and what they can do differently. You can add a plank by leading with respect, treating them as a person worthy of kindness and dignity. And finally, you can add a plank by leading with trust, showing them that you are a safe place, even when they make mistakes. Over time, the bridge becomes a strong connection that allows your child to trust you, learn from you, and feel safe turning to you when they face challenges. They grow up understanding accountability, self-regulation, and compassion, skills that they'll carry long into adulthood. So ask yourself this question. Do you want to build a wall that divides you and your child, or do you want to build a bridge that connects you, even in the toughest moments? When you think discipline is needed, parenting is a journey filled with challenges, joys, and endless growth opportunities, both for us parents and for our children. Traditional methods of discipline often rely on punishment as a means of teaching right from wrong, but it goes without saying that there are far more effective and nurturing ways to guide our children towards responsible and respectful behaviours. The fact you're here tells me that you're seeking answers, Maybe you were punished as a child. Maybe you find yourself punishing your child and want to seek alternative methods focused on connection. I want you to try this. Next time you think discipline is needed, if you're looking to punish your child using fear, shame, incessant yelling, or even physical punishment, ask yourself these 4 questions. Am I building trust and connection? Am I encouraging intrinsic motivation? Am I teaching problem-solving skills? And am I promoting emotional regulation? Let's break these down. Number 1, am I building trust and connection? Punishment weakens trust and harms the parent-child relationship. Parenting without punishment allows us to prioritize trust and nurture a strong emotional bond with our child. Punishment often leads children to associate their parent with negativity, eroding the foundation of trust. By preserving trust and connection, we create a safe space where our children feel comfortable seeking our guidance and support. Number 2, am I encouraging intrinsic motivation? Punishment often motivates children through fear or external pressure, which may lead to compliance but not genuine understanding. It's very easy to coerce kids into compliance, but when we lose focus, it rarely teaches them anything. Focusing on more positive methods fosters that intrinsic motivation and helps our little ones develop a sense of responsibility and a desire to make good choices for their benefit. Number 3, am I teaching problem-solving skills? Punishment can suppress problem-solving skills as our kids may focus on avoiding consequences rather than learning from their mistakes. Parenting without punishment allows children to learn how to solve problems, make responsible choices, and understand the consequences of their actions. Number 4, am I promoting emotional regulation? Punishment can sometimes escalate emotional reactions and lead to heightened stress for both parents and their little ones. When we choose to parent without punishment, we encourage emotional regulation by providing children with tools and guidance to manage their feelings in a constructive way. Focus on this instead of punishment. Number 1, focus on connection. I'm sure you've heard the term connection over correction online. And yes, it does make for cool terminology, but it's more than just a snazzy one-liner for an Instagram post. Involve your child in resolving the issue by working as a team to identify the problem and find a solution. This empowers your little one to take responsibility while building their problem-solving skills and their connection with you. Problem solving is a collaborative approach that treats our child as an active participant in finding solutions to challenges. This approach helps children develop critical thinking, accountability, and a sense of ownership over their actions, instead of simply focusing on a short-term modification in their behaviour. Head over to the next page and I'll break down some clear steps to help you with this. Number 1, staying calm. Approach the situation without judgment or anger because your tone sets the stage for cooperation. Number 2, define the problem. State the issue clearly and neutrally. For example, you hit your brother when you're upset and that hurt them. Number 3, seek their input. Ask questions to understand their feelings and their motives. What happened? How are you feeling when that happened? Number 4, brainstorm solutions together. Encourage your child to think of ways to solve or prevent the problem. Offer suggestions if they need help. For example, what could you do instead of hitting when you're upset? Number 5, agree a plan. Decide on a solution and outline how to implement it. Next time you can come to me for help and we'll work through it together. And number 6, follow up. Reflect on how the plan worked and adjust if necessary. Children feel respected when their voices are heard, which motivates them to cooperate. They also learn to approach problems constructively and feel capable of making amends. Just going off script here, so those points were in relation to number 1, focus on connection. So this section is all about focusing on things instead of punishment. So number 1 was focusing on connection, and on to number 2, which is focusing on appropriate consequences. Consequences lead to lots of debate, mainly because if used ineffectively, they can be punishment in disguise. However, I feel children need appropriate consequences to help them learn and develop. They're an important part of discipline. It's all about how we use them and how we implement them. Consequences let children experience the results of their actions without interference, helping them understand how their choices affect their world. Examples of appropriate consequences include if a child refuses to wear a jacket, they'll feel cold outside. If your child throws a toy and it breaks, they lose the toy. If your child doesn't clean up their space, they might not be able to find their favourite toy and it will be messy when they play next time. When you're communicating consequences to your child, focus on the following. Number 1, set the stage. Explain the potential outcomes beforehand. If you don't wear your jacket, you might feel cold. Number 2, stay calm. Avoid saying, "I told you so," if the consequence happens. Instead, empathise. "I see you're cold now. Would you like to get your jacket?" Number 3, offer support. Allow room for learning. Help them think about how to make different choices in the future. Appropriate consequences are powerful because they're tied to real-world outcomes, making lessons memorable. This approach avoids power struggles and helps children internalise responsibility without shame. So just going off script, just taking you back now to the areas of focus, and this is number 3, focus on redirection. Redirection is so powerful because it shifts our child's focus from undesirable behaviour to a more acceptable activity. This approach acknowledges the child's developmental need for guidance without punishment. If you struggle with redirection, try this. Number 1, observe the behaviour. Recognise the underlying need or emotion. For example, your child throwing toys might be seeking sensory input or expressing frustration. Number 2, acknowledge their emotion. Validate how they feel. It seems like you're feeling restless right now. Number 3, offer an alternative. Suggest a more appropriate activity. Blocks are for building towers. If you want to throw something, let's use this softball instead. And number 4, reinforce positive behaviour. Praise their new choice. Great job using the ball to throw. This approach meets the child's needs without shutting them down. It teaches them acceptable ways to express themselves, reducing frustration and misbehaviour over time. Just taking you back to the areas of focus, on to number 4, focus on the skills they are lacking. Misbehaviour often stems from a lack of skills, whether it's emotional regulation, communication, or problem solving. Teaching and practicing these skills equips our little ones to handle future situations better. I've tried to break this down as simple as I can, so focus on these things. Number 1, identify the skill gap. Determine what your child needs to learn. For instance, if they grab toys from others, they might need to develop the skill of sharing or waiting their turn, which of course takes time. Number 2, model the behaviour. Demonstrate what you'd like to see. For example, when I want to use something, I ask, "Can I have a turn when you're done?" Number 3, role-play scenarios. Practice the skill playfully. For example, pretend to argue over a toy and show how to resolve this calmly. Just going off script, this is such a huge one and something I do with our little ones very, very often. Role-play everything, narrate everything, talk them through everything, and by doing that, those conversations, those narrations and those chats in themselves become an activity. And there's been a number of times where we've been role-playing certain scenarios and they've just escalated into 30 to 1 hour play sessions. It's been really cool and definitely something worth trying. And finally, guide at the moment. When misbehaviour occurs, guide them through the skill. For example, remember, instead of grabbing, you can say, "Can I play with that next?" And I think a really important point, just coming off script, this guiding them through the moment, you're going to be doing that again and again and again, because this is a combination of you modelling the behaviour and encouraging them and allowing them to learn, but also giving them that time to reach that developmental milestone cognitively as well. It's important to acknowledge even small steps with something like, "You waited so patiently, great job." This approach empowers children by giving them the tools they need to navigate challenges, reducing reliance on misbehaviour to express themselves. And finally, number 5 in the areas to focus on instead of punishment is focus on consistent boundaries. Establish clear and consistent age-appropriate boundaries. When your little one knows what is expected of them, they are more likely to meet those expectations. Boundaries are so important for our children. They're a crucial part of their healthy development. We must ensure we're consistent with our boundaries. When we're inconsistent with them, we confuse our little one. As tempting as it is to say yes to their demands for an easy life, appreciate that by saying yes and no some of the time, we inadvertently cause confusion in the minds of our children, and therefore we will see that limit-pushing behaviour increase because they know that those boundaries are susceptible to being dropped. Now, just going off script, this is a really important one. Depending on the age of your child, I think this is more important when they're younger, when they're entering toddlerhood. I think it's all on the parent. You know your child. Obviously, you aren't going to be staying consistent all of the time. There are going to be times where maybe you want the TV on during dinner for an easy life because you're tired, exhausted. It's at the end of a long week and you just want to have a binge in front of the telly with some food. It's not talking about that, but it's about knowing your child, working with them and being able to hold those consistent boundaries, because you know, based on your child's behaviour and the way they react to the inconsistency, that in the longer term it's going to impact them negatively. So it's all on the parent really to navigate that one as best they can, but just to communicate that consistency is really important for our little ones. Often when our child is being disruptive or displaying challenging behaviour, we can slip into battle mode. It quickly becomes them versus us. If your child lashes out, becomes frustrated, isn't listening, won't get dressed, is having a meltdown, or is refusing to have a bath, whatever it may be, as human beings we naturally move into battle mode, which never ends well. Because if we want to move forward and help our child learn, develop and thrive, we need to shift this thinking to us versus the problem. Now, if you want a visual representation of this, in the guide you can see we've got me versus you, and then that transitions to us versus the problem. And this really helps when it comes to responding to our child. To do this effectively, we need to provide a safe space for our child to calm down and reflect on their behaviour. And finally, something I want every parent to remember: we are not perfect. We are only human. And as humans, we will stumble and we will make mistakes. And the beauty is, if we do stumble, then the door is open for us to model repair. Repair isn't something that gets discussed enough. Quite often, parenting-related content is focused on what we should do or need to do when it comes to engaging with our little ones. But the fact is, we're only human. We make mistakes, we stumble, and we will snap at our little ones when we have very little patience or we're exhausted at the end of a very long day. Of course, our children need to see us being authentic. They need to learn that we make mistakes as human beings, as parents, but we need to see these stumbling blocks as opportunities to model repair and teach our little ones that we're accountable for our actions. We need to get comfortable as parents with saying sorry to our kids, with putting our hands up and saying that we've made a mistake. We need to get comfortable with acknowledging their feelings and apologising when we've done wrong. Repair is so important for our kids. It teaches them some very important life lessons. So the next time you snap at your child at the end of a long day, Yes, it isn't ideal, and yes, we need to take steps to ensure we're meeting our little ones from a place of calm, but use these moments as opportunities to teach. Modelling repair not only teaches important life skills, but it also contributes to the development of emotionally resilient, empathetic, and accountable individuals who can build healthy relationships and navigate life challenges effectively. Above all, we model what healthy relationship looks like, something our kids need to be aware of as they grow older and form relationships of their own. Conclusion. Remember, we're playing the long game. Yes, punishment works if your aim is to get your child to comply and conform. Punishment will give you that short-term modification in behaviour, but this behaviour change isn't because your child has magically learned how to regulate their emotions. The behaviour modification is achieved through fear, and that's exactly what we want to avoid. We want to avoid fearful parenting. We need our children to trust us as their parents and show them compassion as we provide them guidance through their lives. The goal here is to raise emotionally intelligent human beings. We want our children to learn the importance of compassion and being empathetic towards other people. Research shows that yes, punishment sometimes works to get obedience, but it does nothing for the parent-child relationship. When punishment is used, fear and anger enter the relationship, and that affects communication, trust, respect, and the joy of being together. I just want to say a massive thank you for listening. If you found this helpful, please drop me an email at thedadvibes@gmail.com or a DM on Instagram and let me know how you found it. Make sure you join my Parenting Without Punishment community. It's open for free to 200 people. And if you want to dive deeper, my 1-hour masterclass is now available via the link below, which will help you to learn respectful, effective strategies to handle everyday challenges like refusals, defiance, and big emotions. The masterclass is just 1 hour long and is focused on helping you discover how to discipline your child confidently without punishment or shame. Thank you for listening.